Well, thanks for staying with us here on the AM show. Welcome to AM Talk. I have two guests interacting with us on the big issues. Mr. Andre Dafeamekpor is Member of Parliament for 2nd D, Special Budgets Committee member. He's on the Privileges Committee, Constitutional Legal Parliamentary Affairs Committee. Good morning.
Yeah.
You used to be on Communications, right?
Yes, I used to be on the Communications Committee in the 7th Parliament.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Privileges as well. Indeed, in the 7th Parliament, I also served on the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee for a bit and was taken off. And this 8th Parliament, I'm on 3 committees. Special Budget, Privileges and Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Good morning, and good morning to our cherished viewers.
Yeah. Special Budgets, what do you do?
Well, many of the state constitutional bodies that are not directly under the supervision of ministers of state, and so they are not agencies, under a ministry. Their budget is approved by the Special Budget Committee. So, for instance, the Electoral Commission, the Public Services Commission, the Audit Service, and such other bodies, their budgets are considered by the Special Budget Committee. Yeah.
Okay. When we're playing back that banter between the Speaker and the Majority Leader, I saw you laughing. Were you in the chamber that day?
Yes, I was, and indeed, it was an interesting anticlimax because the issues that had come up for which discussions were ongoing, that led to the interesting exchange between Mr. Speaker and the Leader of Government Business and Majority Leader. I don't know if you are aware, there's a petition that the Speaker admitted. The Majority Leader felt strongly that it wasn't proper, and I tend to agree with the Majority Leader because I cannot, under any circumstances, fathom how a matter that is already pending in court, a matter that is the subject of a statutory, of an action by a statutory body, which any aggrieved party then has recourse to the court of law, can also simultaneously be a subject for parliamentary inquiry.
We'll come to that is actually part of the conversations. But I just wanted to ask, because somebody made a comment yesterday. If you look at just that brief banter, is there something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about?
I don't think so. I mean,
was this purely like a friendly kind of exchange?
Well, that's what I think it was. Indeed, the friendship between the Speaker and the Majority Leader is well known. I mean, these are people who've been in Parliament altogether since 1996. Of course, the Speaker went there earlier in 1992, and I'm sure you're aware that on some occasion, the Majority Leader has actually accompanied Alban, then candidate Babin, to his constituency to campaign with him, from the opposing party. And I'm sure the MPP had a candidate in that constituency at the time. But of course, he knows his value in terms of what he brings to the table when it comes to parliamentary business. And so he desired for him to remain, and rightfully so, if you ask me. And so they are well known to be great bodies. Okay, so the Speaker then suggested that because the Majority Leader had openly criticized him, and I heard his interview with Evans Mensah on this particular subject, he had some reservations as to whether they were indeed friends. But of course, I mean, I thought that it was only on the lighter side. I like the Majority Leader said, I have great friends in the NDC, and I'm sure that when my colleague comes in, you know that he's a very good friend of mine. We go way back. It's not the politics that will create divisions amongst us, but we disagree.
So there's nothing to worry.
No, I don't think there's anything to worry about at all. I don't think so at all.
We're here, great. Okay, so just briefly, let's talk about the budgetary allocation as a member of Parliament. You should be happy that the presidency made a big U-turn. It's not exactly the figure that Parliament was looking for, but it's close at least.
Well, I don't know whether it's a U-turn or not. Okay, because as far as I'm concerned, the compensation goods and services budget was indeed not touched. My understanding is that the capital expenditure budget, which is intended, I understand, to build some 70 offices for members of parliament in their constituencies this year, that government felt that, look, in the times that we find ourselves in, maybe it may not be the right time to fund that capital expenditure. The Speaker objected. And so, yes, constitutionally is right. Because
the arms are equal.
Absolutely. So, but the question really would be whether any amount that is submitted, regardless of the economic circumstances of the state, is what the executive would have to make available to either arm. And so there are budget hearings that take place between the various units of government, ministries, departments, and agencies before the ceilings are approved for the budget to be prepared. So I guess that it was at that point that clearly the government's indication to the effect that these capital expenditure budgets may not be in a position to fund at this time. But of course, if they object and they make a case, then some review has to be done for those expenditure items to be taken.
If this was
that's
in the 7 parliaments, would we have gotten to this point? Do you think we would have seen the Speaker say publicly, disagree publicly with what has been allocated to the maybe not. I really cannot speculate. But I'm sure that because 7 Parliament, the Speaker was a member of the MPP, the public objection may not have been the route that he would have gone. That's my own suspicion. But like I said, I would not be in a position to indicate whether, because clearly I'm not in the mind of Mr. Speaker. Well, but that for a lot of Ghanaians, it sounds straightforward. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of Ghanaians would agree that he wouldn't have said it in the chamber. Well,
that would have been my expectation. And indeed, I indicated sometime last week when the issue came up that I think on TV3, that I think that Mr. Speaker could have used alternative means of addressing the issue rather than the threats.
But this got results.
Well, I don't know whether alternative means couldn't have yielded the same results, because indeed, and I've argued, and I think it was rather on Metro TV that I made that comment. The Speaker is not a member of Parliament. He's not. And so I fail to see how he can prevent a decision that Parliament has taken from being implemented. And so the suggestion that he would have blocked the appropriations bill, for instance, really, I thought it was stretching it. Okay, because if the Parliament of Ghana, which is made up of 275 members, duly elected by the people to represent them, take a decision, I fail to see how the Speaker...
Yeah, but who will be leading that?
But of course, the Speaker presides over business of the House. And so maybe administratively the transmittal is what he could have... And I don't know the extent to which he would have caused that threat anyway. But issue is settled. Some funds additional has been made available to Parliament.
Significant addition, by the way. I want us to take a listen to the Speaker. We'll be joined by Mr. Roxing Nelson Dafeamekpor.
The letter in connection with Parliament and the Parliamentary Service is also dated 23rd March 2021. And it says, Mr. Speaker, read recommendations of government on the 2021 proposed estimates of expenditure for Parliament and the Parliamentary Service. I acknowledge receipt of your letter dated 16 March 2021 with reference number OP/SPK/21/PS8 on the above subject matter, and submit the estimates of expenditure for Parliament and the Parliamentary Service to be laid before Parliament, as well as the recommendations of government on them. Estimates of estimates of expenditure for Parliament and the Parliamentary Service, and that is why we submitted. Compensation was 201,112,086 Ghana cedis. Goods and services 205,027,688. Administrative and operational expenses 406,139,774. Capex 177,346,911. So grand total is 583,486,685. Recommendations of government on estimates of expenditure for Parliament and the Parliamentary Service. In view of the reduced fiscal space in the national budget as a result of statutory and debt service obligations, government cannot accommodate the request by Parliament.
We welcome Mr. Roxing Nelson, Dafeamekpor, Member of Parliament for South Dai. He's on the Standing Orders Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, Constitutional Legal Parliamentary Affairs Committee as well. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. I think I was told 7:30. Apparently it was 7:15, so it's okay. It happens.
I was told 7 o'clock. Well, I got here at 7:15.
Can you believe this?
I've spent most of my morning.
You can balance it in Parliament.
Yes,
I owe you,
see,
you owe me.
You see, the two of us have been very regular here, so sometimes when you get a communication and...
But it's good to finally have you back in the studio. It's been a long time
after
since
COVID.
we did this in the studio.
COVID took us.
Was it a COVID, or you guys took a decision to vary your programming a little bit?
Well, COVID forced all of us
to vary your programming.
Exactly. Okay, so Mr. Dafeamekpor, just briefly, because we've talked about the budgetary allocation, and I thought that as Member of Parliament, he'll be excited that the presidency.
You know, he's the Deputy Energy Minister.
Oh, you're telling us?
Yeah. Yes.
The list isn't out.
Thank you very much.
It is.
Okay.
Congratulations, my brother.
Is it before Parliament?
Congratulations, my brother.
I don't know whether
I want him there.
The
congratulations
to 5% that His Excellency the President obtained. Your name was on the ballot.
Oh, please.
So I think the last issue was the fact that if this was the 7th Parliament, would we have seen the Speaker then make public comments, publicly disagree with what was allocated to the legislature?
First of all, good morning to my constituents and to you. I served under Professor Michael Koe. He may be an MPP, but I think he loved Parliament and what Parliament stands for. You know, so on a few occasions you will be in political elements, but on most occasions we handle Parliament the way he had to. And I think because this was still a government that was in its first term, And so, and you know, the Parliamentary Affairs Ministry and Parliamentary Service was a concept that was taken away for a long time and brought back under his term. So you couldn't be pushing certain limits. But I think Bagbin...
And that Bagbin, we still have parliamentary affairs.
Yes, but the point I'm making is that Okoye was, for me, I want to speak from his perspective, from how I served under him in the 7th Parliament. He was looking at establishing that concept because he believed in it. He believed that there ought to be a ministry that should be in charge of Parliament. Because you see, for instance, like the judiciary, nobody speaks for the judiciary. They don't even have a PRO.
But they have a Chief Justice.
Yes, but he's not a PRO. Chief Justice cannot be advocating for the judiciary.
They have a Judicial Secretary,
Hold on. He's not supposed to be parroting their issues in the media. In fact, judiciary, apart from the judicial service, that is further broken down into JUSAC and all that, and made up of the magistracy, members of the magistracy and members of the circuit court levels, they're not supposed to be speaking.
But if you're on the same level with the executive,
I'm trying to lay some foundation. So for 2 organs of state, you really have nobody who speaks for them. As for the executive, they're in charge of everything. They determine everything. So if this were to happen under Professor Michael Okoye, I think he would have told the same line. So far, I haven't seen the difference between Professor Michael Okoye and Speaker Bagbin yet.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
You remember
in fact, 3 days ago, when Speaker had, there
was HMS issue.
Yes.
Yeah. We
you know, Speaker had to let the majority leader know that majority leader. I've been in this house. I've served at the back bench, middle bench, front bench, became minority leader, majority leader, went out, came back, became deputy speaker, and he actually used the expression, I understood it. He said, I understood it under a speaker before I became a speaker. So it tells you how they love how Parliament should grow. He wasn't saying that he will block the budget. I think it was an expression that has been misused. That was not what he intended. In fact, that was not what he said. He said Parliament will not tolerate. To not tolerate is different from to block.
It's interesting when you say...
And he didn't say so in isolation. He said, we are co-equal organs of state. Myself, in fact, Parliament and the judiciary won't tolerate. So he was speaking, he became the voice for 2 organs of state that apparently within our structures, we don't have a ventilator.
Well, not for the legislature. You have a parliamentary affairs minister, don't you?
We have a parliamentary affairs minister who is not a PRO. He's not a PRO.
But you have a PR unit. You have a public affairs unit.
Yeah, that is for the parliamentary service. You are forgetting that parliament is different from parliamentary service, just the way judiciary is different from the judicial service.
Isn't this unnecessarily...
it is. These are constitutional strictures that we need to...
Bureaucratic things that you're introducing.
No. There's nothing bureaucratic about this. And so when Speaker spoke on the opening day of when the budget was, his preliminary comments, after the presentation of the budget, I think what we all found offending was the condescending tone of the letter from Nana Asante-Bediye. Honestly, my brother, we are all lawyers, he's our senior, but the manner in which he wrote the letter.
Did you find it condescending?
To be honest, I came in late during the reading of the letter. I came in.
So you haven't paid attention.
So I really.
Which was Asante-Bediye or the president? Okay, look, he wrote in a manner that suggested that take it or leave it, and Speaker didn't, and we all didn't find it comfortable. So the president, being the president that Hayes, he found wisdom in our position advocated for by the Speaker. And the Speaker, look, they used the expression yesterday in the President's own remitter letter to Parliament. He said he initiated negotiations pursuant to law. Look, you're asking, you brought this, but given the strictures in the budget and the cash flow difficulties, I cannot meet you at 5, but I can meet you at 3.5. That's reasonable. Or I can meet you at 4. And that was what they did, both for the legislature and for judiciary. So some of us will not be raising the issue of unconstitutionality or constitutionality of varying the budget to the detriment of the judiciary and all that.
The bit about you haven't seen any difference between Speaker Alban Gbagbin and Professor Michael Quay. That's fascinating to me. Because I remember one of the recent votes, if not the last, where the second deputy speaker was the one in the chair, where you took a vote and then Alban Gbagbin had to come in later on and
I will explain that. That was on Monday.
Okay.
I will explain.
Is that something that Professor Michael Quay would have done?
Yes. Why not?
Is it?
Look, on Friday, Speaker actually was proposing for sitting to commence at 2 p.m. because he had engagements in the morning. And for some time now, we've been doing 2 p.m. sittings till midnight or whatever. And this being the budget, the period where all the committees are busy with sectorial budgetary considerations and approvals. This would have been the appropriate time to be sitting from 2 p.m. But leadership thought that being Friday, you won't have a full house or cooperating members on a Friday. They have engagements in the constituency. So they insisted that we should still sit at 10 p.m. So Speaker made it
10 a.m. you mean?
10 a.m. Speaker made it clear that he will be available from 2 p.m. And if you look at the time that happened, it was about 2:15. So both the two deputy speakers, first and the second, had been handling business from about 11. I think we didn't sit exactly at 10. We start from about 11. They've been handling business. That voting thing was not for Speaker to come and say, I want to determine. In any case, the question had been put. And the nays lost. So what was to be done? What was to be done was procedural. So a member, our deputy leader, rose and said, well, the yes may have it, but I think that it wasn't too majoritarian. So I was calling for a divide. So at that time, Speaker had come. Speaker couldn't have done anything otherwise. In fact, if my brother, our senior brother, the first deputy speaker, the Honorable Joseph Usu was in the city, would have followed what the substantive speaker did.
Okay, I want us to move on,
so
but
we must take away that mischief.
Okay, I want to ask you, Ejapamesa, do you feel the same way, the difference between Alban Gbagbin and Professor Michael Quay? Is there a difference?
I'll be prejudicial if I make comments.
Prejudicial?
Yeah, because I'm prejudiced in a certain sense, because the circumstances of the composition of Parliament itself
has changed.
Drastically. And so, to that extent, I'll reserve comments on whether or not there are differences between the two of them or not. I leave that to your own judgment.
That's interesting. I didn't think you go.
Let me make this point.
That way.
Let me make this point. Let me be very candid with you. Within the NDC hierarchy, there are a lot of people who are complaining about Speaker. They think that no.
NDC hierarchy, as in the caucus
my party
in Parliament, this is general NDC.
The generality of the membership. They think Speaker is spanning to the side of the government. And you try to explain, and they bundled you along.
But you disagree with that point.
I do disagree. Look, if you understand parliamentary procedure and practices, like he and I are consummate parliamentarians. We love what we do. We love, not because we are lawyers, but we understand our work as elected representatives, and we know that where we operate, there are rules and procedures.
What are the expectations of your party members, of the speaker?
They think that he must come across as partisan. When NDC says, when caucus says something in parliament, it must be the way to go. But that is unlike Bagwin, unless you don't know the man. And so far, and they also had issues with Okoye. There were a lot of occasions that, look, you see the majority leader, he's disagree with the speaker, he won't be in the chamber, he will gather his books and he will leave. But that is maturity. He will come back after about an hour and come and handle his business. You understand? So you don't, that is why speaker in his inaugural speech, he said, I am not a speaker for the NDC or a speaker for the MPP. I'm the speaker for the Republic of Ghana. And so I will champion the interests of Parliament of the Republic of Ghana and the people of the Republic of Ghana.
So as NDC caucus in Parliament, knowing the expectations of your people,
we are managing it.
How are you managing it?
It's difficult. For instance, I am on a lot of platforms. You try and explain things. They say, no, don't go there. So you leave it. Because it's a hot potato.
And come back another day.
Yes, and see whether a few will see wisdom with it. It's a hot potato. You can't touch it. But that is how difficult it is for him. That people think because he's NDC, he must necessarily do things that will benefit NDC, supposedly speaking. But there are rules.
Let's
and the MPP also will feel that because he's NDC, he may be doing things that are favoring the minority caucus in Parliament. But no, if you look at what he's done so far, I think he hasn't done things that deviates considerably from how Okoye has operated. And I'm beginning to appreciate the position. You can't be partisan and survive.
What you're telling us is you're beginning to appreciate Professor Michael Okoye more now that he's no longer there and there's another speaker.
Well, I'm beginning to appreciate the position of the speakership.